April 24th, Steve Guckelberger, the chairman for the Stores Committee, and I sat in on the hearing for the company where they wanted to present their opening statements to the judge, bankruptcy court, to abrogate our deal. In those opening statements, they told the judge that they wanted to abrogate our deal and impose certain things on us. One of the things was the 1.5% increases. I was a little bit shocked when the union put out their comparison chart and those 1.5% increases were missing, because they stated in court that if the judge abrogates the contract, that's one of the things they wanted to impose. They also said that the employees could recoup up to 25% of the dollar value of what they were giving up through the company's profit-sharing plan. And they quoted a number saying that they would have approximately $360 million to distribute between the unionized employees. Now, the company also revealed that it's a 15% profit-sharing plan. So if you go backwards through the numbers, the company's estimate is that they're going to make $3 billion a year profits once they get out of this bankruptcy. So if you look at that number, $3 billion a year in profits, and they're asking $1.25 billion from us, well, that's plenty of profits left over. As a matter of fact, it's $1.75 billion. That's more profitable than any other carrier out there. So in other words, American Airlines could come out of this bankruptcy more profitable than any other carrier out there without even touching our wages and benefits. The question is, it also comes out to be roughly a 17% profit margin, which is unheard of in the airline industry. The question is, does AA really need to make 17%? Do we really need to give up everything that they're asking? The pilots and the flight attendants were also at this hearing, and they challenged the company's claims of what they needed. And they've decided they're going to go to the court. They're going to go through the bankruptcy, the abrogation process, and make their arguments as to why the company should not be able to abrogate our deals. If we ratify this deal, we never get to make that argument. I think in the past we've made decisions such as 1995, where we agreed to a 6-year, 6% contract, only to watch the economy soar and watch our standard of living plummet at the same time. In 2003, we made a similar mistake and tried to keep the company out of bankruptcy by agreeing to concessions that we agreed to for 5 years. They've extended to 9 years. So we really have to think about this and look at the long term here. Are we better off to stand shoulder to shoulder with the flight attendants and the pilots, who, when you look at it, their standing in the industry is much higher than ours? We're at the bottom of the industry. If any work group out there has a good argument against abrogation, it's us. Because if you're at the bottom, then obviously it's something that the company's doing wrong if they can't make money. And obviously they're going to fix a lot of those things in bankruptcy if they figure they're going to be bringing in $1.75 billion more in profits without our concessions. I spoke earlier about the compensation, about how the company had last week offered an additional incentive for AMTs to accept this deal. In the discussion that followed that, even management admitted that the offer that they have in front of us was ridiculously bad. That's their words, not mine. They said it was ridiculously bad, and they were offering these 3.5% increases to make it less bad. You need to consider that. Ridiculous really means unacceptable, and that's what this offer is. It's unacceptable. As I mentioned before, in 1995, a lot of people voted yes, and we got stuck with a 6-year, 6% contract. When the guys voted for that contract, many of them were told that we had a Me Too clause, and we didn't have to worry because we weren't going to be stuck with 6 years for 6%. Well, how well did that work out? In 2003, we got stuck with another concessionary deal, and that time we were promised that we were going to open the contract in 2006 and get everything back. How well did that work out? Well, this deal seems to be a combination of both, because it promises both the Me Too clause and an early opener clause and a wage adjustment provision and all these other things that time after time that we sign these agreements only to find out that what we signed is worthless, and we end up getting the minimum amount possible. We need to not make the same mistake again and lock ourselves in for 6 years. It's one thing to try and help out the company. But it's another thing to lock yourself into 6 years into a deal, which, as we learned in 2003, a deal that we sign with the company does not keep the company into it. It only keeps us into it. If they want to get out of it, they can. We can't.
So what happens if you vote no? The most important thing to understand is if you vote no, it doesn't end the process. The judge doesn't abrogate, and it isn't the end of the contracts as we know them, or the negotiations as we know them. What happens if we vote this final offer down is we go back and we continue to negotiate. We've elected a certain group of individuals off of the negotiating team to come to New York to meet with the company in the window of time from the time the offer is voted down to the time that the judge could abrogate. And the reason I use could abrogate is because the judge, the last thing they want to do is abrogate a deal. So what they're going to want to see is the company and the union work to try and ratify something or bring something before him that makes sense. By saying no, it gives us an opportunity to go back in front of the company and say, as Bob said earlier, this deal's unacceptable, and these are some of the things that need to be taken out, or these are some of the things that need to change. Is it going to be perfect? No. Is it going to be something that we can live with? We don't know. It's an unknown area. But I'd rather go into the unknown area and fight for something than take what's on the table and know I have to live with another 6 years of falling further in the industry and losing more to everybody else that's out there that we call our competition. In reality, they're not our competition. They're the same people that do the work we do, and they're making substantially greater money than we do even before entering this process, and will continue to do throughout the time. Either we vote for this contract or we fight to try and get some of that back through the duration of whatever we agree to.
To my fellow mechanics out there, I'd like to say that when we become mechanics, we have an obligation to our profession, an obligation to our craft. And that obligation is higher in priority than our obligation to our employee. As aircraft mechanics, we have to do our best to maintain aircraft safely the way that they're supposed to be maintained. When we go out there and vote on contracts, we have to realize that we're not the only ones affected by how we vote and what is in those contracts. We know this is a very competitive industry. So if we vote in a contract that puts our labor at a much lower price, we put pressure on the whole industry to lower price. And it's really not fair to other mechanics. We have to carry our weight, do what they've done, bring wages up, try and restore benefits, and so forth, like we've seen throughout the industry. We went into bankruptcy, unlike any other carrier. We went into bankruptcy at the bottom. And now the company wants to use bankruptcy to seek a new bottom. We can't allow that to happen. We have to challenge this thing. We have to bring it to the judge. We have to go through the process and make sure we get a better deal out of this.
Brothers and sisters, what we have here, we're being gassed up and taken for a ride. 95, one of the things that I remember during the 95 contract, when this company was making money, we had it thrown back in our face, and we were essentially told, well, you could negotiate it. And then in 2003, the same thing. We heard the same rhetoric. When is enough enough? We have people out here, all we're trying to do is make an honest living, provide for ourselves and our family, and we're not even being afforded the opportunity to do that with this proposal. We don't want to be a burden to society, but this proposal is going to make that even more than it already is. You have people that have lost their homes, you've had people that have filed bankruptcy, divorces, stress, and when is this going to end? Let's not repeat history. I know it's very difficult out there, but let's not repeat history.
The company's gone ahead and eliminated system protection from the agreement, and we spoke on that earlier. But what's important to understand is through the last several negotiations, there's been a rhetoric about saving jobs. If you look at the seniority lists and you look at how many people are still working here, every time we talk about saving jobs, jobs get further diminished. The last time it was Kansas City that was going to be saved, and it's been shut down. This time they're shutting down AFW, and what's to say next it isn't your city? Without system protection or any type of job security, this company can keep marching itself up the seniority list, forcing you to move from your current station or location to another station until it just shrinks to the size that it wants to be, as small as it wants to be, using the outsourced labor that are working on these next generation airplanes. It's really critical you think about that, even if you're one of the more junior guys. If you don't have system protection, or your system protection date was moved in the past, that was the result of this type of quote-unquote bargaining. And that's why you lost your system protection, because people moved lines and made provisions that were going to save the company or help the company, and what they did is turned around and abused that. And you know, our position is a pretty simple one. We want to hold the line and stand together on what we stand for. And by doing that, if some guys do get laid off, you'll get recalled. You'll get recalled to a good job where you want to come back to work. Either way, they're going to have reductions. They're still talking about laying off over 1,000 people. 400 plus in line maintenance alone, which was recently disclosed to us that the company still intends to do that. They talked about it a little bit during their negotiations. We found ways to mitigate that we could have put forward through a consensual deal that would have brought that number down to less than 200, and those 200 probably would have been offset by some of the folks that were leaving on an early out. There was no reason for us to get to this point. We could have reached some sort of consensual deal, saved jobs, got people better paying locations that need it. There's people out there hurting. Not all stations have the high cost of living. There were discussions about that. The company didn't entertain anything. For the folks that tax the airplanes, we brought that to the table. You won't see that anywhere. Trying to show, hey, there's ways we can improve operational performance. Help us help you. And the company turned around and said, we were not interested in helping you. What we're interested in doing is running our business the way we want to run our business. And we've seen what that's gotten us over the last several years. So for those of you that are considering voting yes, I ask you to really think about your career, your livelihood, and if you might get laid off, what you're going to come back to, because just voting yes isn't going to save this. We need to stand up, we need to stand together, and we need to fight through our way through this. And if that means going through the process and an abrogation and going back to negotiations, if we stick together, there's a good chance we'll come out better on the other side. If we agree to accept this, we accept it, and the company's answer going forward is going to be, hey, you guys voted for it. This is your deal. This is what you guys said you wanted. This is unacceptable. Nobody should be considering this deal. I don't care where you work. I don't care what concerns you have. The concerns are real for all of us. We all have the same concerns about voting against this. It's a fear of the unknown. But don't fear that, because we're here to fight for it. And if we do it together, we will come out the other side better for it.
To add to Brother Peterson's statements, you don't eliminate system and station protection to save jobs. System and station protection was put in to save jobs. So if you eliminate it, obviously you have the opposite intention. The same goes for eliminating the ASM cap to allow unlimited expansion of American Eagle at the expense of American Airlines. You don't double the threshold for station staffing if you're trying to save jobs. And you don't add outsourcing language to save jobs. Clearly, this is not a saving jobs offer. This is a cutting jobs offer. As a matter of fact, the way this language is written, they've actually stripped us of all job protection.
Brothers and sisters, another thought to ponder is the fact that at your Class 2 cities, while there is language that protects Title II classifications, there is no language within this final offer that protect Title V and Title I jobs at those cities, which is yet another reason to reject this deal.
I know what George said. I'm a no vote. I look at what the companies put out as their last best offer, and I just can't see any way with what they've shown us that they're interested in even getting us to consider this as something that we should be voting yes for. I'm a no vote.
For all these reasons that we've discussed at this table today, that is the reason I have decided to vote no.
This is one of those rare occasions where I agree with management. This is a ridiculous offer. That's why I'm voting no.
Brothers and sisters, it's now the time to vote. Please exercise your option to vote and join me in voting no.
Over the next week and a half, you're going to receive a lot of information from a lot of people who say they're experts and so forth. The one thing you need to consider is that they don't have to live under this agreement. You do. So before you vote, ask yourself, do I really want to settle for this? Do I really want to settle for being in the bottom of the industry and lock myself into that for another 6 years? Vote no.